50 years ago, when India became independent, about 50 million people in India lived in urban places. India's urban population today, that is according to the 1991 census, stands at 217 million. That is about 1/4 of total population of India lives in urban centers. And there are 23 metropolitan places that account for about 1/3 of the urban population. Now it is projected that by the end of this century, that is at the time of the next census, there would be 49 metropolitan centers in India, those with population of greater than 1 million. And by the year 2015, as much as 50% of the total population of India might be urbanized. So that does sound like a very high rate of urbanization. But to think that India is urbanizing at an extremely high rate is somewhat misplaced, because the rate of growth of urban population in India during the last decade has been about 3.1% a year, which is slightly lower than what it was in the previous decade. I think the better perspective is to recognize that urbanization is inevitable, and for the betterment of society, it is even desirable. The challenge is how to manage it efficiently and in a sustainable manner. Now, one of the major hindrances in the development of urban places in India has been the very constricting and very over-regulated framework that state legislatures have adopted with respect to local self-government. Now, we hope this would change when the 74th Amendment to the Constitution gets implemented. Total expenditure by municipal bodies in India accounts for roughly 1% of our GDP, and it accounts for 3.5% of the total public expenditure by all units of government, that is the center, state, and the local governments. In contrast to that, in America, for example, the local governments account for 8% of GDP in terms of their expenditure, and 23% of the total expenditure by all public bodies. Most recently, the Rakesh Mohan Committee, which produced the India Infrastructure Report, estimated that India's urban infrastructure needs are of the order of 28,000 crores a year, whereas the actual fund flow for urban infrastructure has been something less than 2,000 crores a year. As much as 20% of urban population in India does not get safe drinking water, and only probably 30% of the population has access to sanitary sewerage and drainage. Now, the situation in the bigger metros might be better, but it's far from satisfactory. Water shortages, the problems with sewerage drainage, the problems of garbage removal are such that there is a crisis of public health that the residents are faced with, and a threat to their welfare in the long run. Fortunately, a number of cities have tried to change the situation, and some of the innovative practices that are emerging are very promising, and it's possible that we may be able to overcome the situation in cities across the country. Now, these innovations are of several types. One of those is the greater private sector participation in provision of municipal services. A number of cities in India are contracting out their solid waste management functions. Similarly, street cleaning and street lighting functions are contracted out, and the experience of these municipal corporations has been very positive, because they have been able to cut costs and provide service levels which are much higher than what the corporations were able to do on their own. Another innovative trend which has great promise is of public-private partnerships. Similarly, a number of municipal corporations are trying to tap more innovative ways of financing their infrastructure in order to improve the levels of municipal services. Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation is the first local body which has floated municipal bonds in order to raise resources for funding its infrastructure projects. But when it comes to innovative practices in urban management, Surat definitely takes the crown, because in the post-plague scenario, a city which was once considered to be one of the filthiest in the country has turned around and claimed to be one of the cleanest cities in the country.
આમ તો છે એક ભીના ભીના સ્થળનું નામ સુરત, આંખ છે તાપી નદી ને એના જળનું નામ સુરત. આવ ખેડી નાખ મારી છાતીના ડાંગર વનોને, એક અણિયાળા છતાં મહેકંત હળનું નામ સુરત. વ્રજ વહાલું છે મને, વૈકુંઠમાં શું દોડી આવું. રાધિકાશો હું ભ્રમર છું, રાધિકાશો હું ભ્રમર છું, મુજ કમળનું નામ સુરત. પાઘ રાતી પાસ પુસ્તક તર્જની લમણે ધરેલી, લાગણી નામે મુલકના ક્ષેત્રફળનું નામ સુરત.
1972માં અમે આવ્યા. જ્યારે અહીં આવ્યા ત્યારે આઉટ માઇગ્રેશન, બહારથી આવનારા લોકોનું આટલું પ્રમાણ નહોતું ને સામાજિક એનું માળખું કહીએ તો સુરત ઇઝ ડોમિનેટેડ બાય ક ખ ગ ઘ, કણબી ખત્રી ગોલા ઘાંચી જેને કહીએ તે. એટલે એમાં સ્ત્રીઓનું પાર્ટિસિપેશન પણ બહુ હતું, વર્ચસ્વ પણ બહુ હતું, સ્વતંત્રતા પણ એ લોકોમાં બહુ હતી. એ ઉપરાંત અહીંયા જે આદિવાસીઓની વસ્તી છે એમાં પણ અમુક પ્રકારનો તમને સામાજિક માહોલ દેખાતો હતો.
તાપી નદીને કિનારે જે વસ્યું છે અને નર્મદ નગરી જે ઇતિહાસમાં પણ લખાયેલી એક નગરી છે. સુરતની પ્રજા પ્રેમાળ. પ્લેગ જે આવ્યો કે કોઈને પણ ખબર ન હતી કે મારું શું થશે, અને એટલા ભયભીત થઈ ગયા હતા કે આજે સુરતની જન સુધીનો જે સંદેશો છે કે સ્વચ્છ હોવું જોઈએ, મારું ઘર સ્વચ્છ, મારું નગર સ્વચ્છ, મારી શેરી સ્વચ્છ, તો મારું આરોગ્ય સ્વચ્છ. જે લોકના મુખમાં હૈયામાં જે વસ્યો હતો આ પ્લેગ, અને પ્લેગથી એ અમારો ગુરુ બની ગયો એમ કહું તો ખોટું નથી.
સુરત શહેર આજે 30 વર્ષમાં અમે આવ્યા ત્યારે ગંદુ સુરત એ નામ ચાલતું હતું. તે વખતે આ શહેરીઓમાં ઓટલા ઉપર સંડાસ હતા, અને ઓટલા ઉપર સંડાસનું જે મળ ને એ બધું માથે વ્યવહારતું હતું. અને શેરીઓમાં આપણે જઈએ તો ગંદી શેરીઓ ગણાતી. પણ ધીમે ધીમે એ શહેરમાં વચમાં તો પ્લેગ, એ ગંદુ શહેર લીધે પ્લેગ ચાલ્યો, ટાઇફોઇડ થઈ, મેલેરિયા થયા, એવા ઘણા બધા કેસો થતા. પણ ધીમે ધીમે આ શહેરમાં પ્રગતિ થવા માંડી.
અને જે પ્લેગ ત્યાર પછી રાવ સાહેબે આવીને, પહેલાં તો અમને તો ખબર જ નહીં કે આઈએએસ અધિકારી પાસે આટલા બધા પાવર્સ હશે. પાવર્સ તો હોય જ છે, પણ એમણે અમને ખબર પડી કે આઈએએસ અધિકારી આટલું કરી શકે છે. શરૂઆતમાં એમને પોલિટિકલી થોડો સપોર્ટ નહીં મળેલો, પણ ત્યાર પછી એમણે એકલાએ, અને આની અંદર જે સુરત ચેનલ છે તેમજ પ્રેસ રિપોર્ટરો છે એ મીડિયા થકી પણ એમણે ઘણું એમને પ્રોત્સાહન મળ્યું.
અને ડિમોલિશન માટે તો ઘણા વખતથી આ શહેરમાં એ હતું જ, લાઈન દોરી મુકાયેલી જ હતી અલાઇનમેન્ટની. અને જ્યારે રાવ સાહેબ આવ્યા ત્યારે એમણે કામગીરી જે રીતે શરૂ કરી ત્યારે એક રીતનો એવો જુવાળ પેદા થયો, જેને લીધે અમને પણ થયું કે નહીં ભાઈ, આ કરવાથી ભવિષ્યમાં તો સારું જ છે. એટલે ફ્યુચર શહેરનું અને અમારું પોતાનું પણ ધંધાકીય રીતે फ्यूचर જોઈને અમે લોકો એગ્રી થયા.
नहीं, आज से 5 साल पहले नहीं लगता था, लेकिन अभी ऐसा लग रहा है कि गुजरात में सबसे अच्छी सिटी हमें सूरत लग रही है. प्लेग के बाद सेंट्रल ने, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने काफ़ी सूरत की ओर ध्यान दिया.
The primary cause of any disease or illness in society is the socio-economic factors. So I went into that, which includes not only social conditions but nature of planning of the cities, nature of development that we have addressed about it. And I analyzed in fairly detail about nature of various plans that city has evolved or not planned it. Number of areas have joined the city, say from 1960 onwards, they become a part of Surat Municipal Corporation. And that caused congestions, waterlogging when there's a rain, that kind of a traffic and other problems about it. And which really lead to all kind of diseases.
So when we started our city cleaning program and city upgradation program, it was initially decided that we should focus all our major activity on slums. Whatever the basic services we should provide, priority should be given to slum and slum only. And all the senior officers, they should spend minimum 6 to 7 hours a day in slum area. Because of our constant presence in the slum areas, the middle management and the lower staff, they don't have any alternative for any kind of excuses. So the work were geared up in such a manner that we were able to clean all the slums within a period of 4 to 5 months. Then if that is the demolition, then it should be from the top guns. The citizen having muscle power, money power, we have decided to target them first. Likewise on administration also, we have started giving incentives to our class 4 employees and punishments to our senior most and middle management officers. So because of the active support from the citizen, some of the NGOs and the media, of course, that was supported by hard working from all the municipal employees and the officers, and surprisingly very, very active support from the ruling party. Then also some strategies were adopted. The mayor, the premier, standing committee chairman and the leader of the party, 4 officials from the elected wing and 1 municipal commissioner and 2-3 deputy commissioner and some of the senior officers. We were making dialogues every alternate day, late in the evening after 8 p.m. and chalking out the schedule for the next week, what should be done and how to be done. Even if some policy issues are there, they were discussed in length, pros and cons were all discussed. It was on the part of the municipal commissioner to see that the policy will be executed in proper manner so as to facilitate the citizen. And it was the commitment on the part of the 4 non-officials. They will say that we will see that it will be cleared by either the standing committee or the general board. Likewise, the coordinations were maintained. And with the police, the then commissioner, he also helped us a lot. When we started this cleanliness program, there was some resistance from some of the areas, some groupism. So we approached the police. There are certain powers in the Bombay Police Act about nuisance chapter. In that case, police can also take action against the citizen who is littering anywhere or doing any kind of nuisance. We make a series of discussion with the Commissioner of Police. We requested them. Then a joint public notice were issued in the newspaper, in English and in Gujarati both, mentioning the various provisions of the Bombay Provincial Corporation Act and the Bombay Police Act, with the joint signature of Commissioner of Police and Municipal Commissioner. That were very effective. Of course, that was an indirect threat, but we wanted to bring to the notice of the citizen that look, if you do not obey the various provisions of this act, then you will be subject to penalty as prescribed in the statutes. Sometime, whenever we need a police force, just with a one telephone call from any of the deputy commissioner or executive engineer, it was the standing instruction with the police department that they have to render the required police force. So in the beginning we were in need of some police force, but later on when the citizens started giving us the cooperation, gradually we have eliminated the police force.
There was a cynical atmosphere in the beginning, but slowly people had a faith in no, he means business. The most important thing that is done is that he identifies say 20 roads which were largely used in the morning by the people. From the morning, say 5 o'clock workers used to work cleanly. So that when 7:30 when people start working, people say, oh, this is something new road. You see, no garbage anywhere. So it created impression that something new is happening. Once people realize that something is happening, then this corporation men went to house in those areas and asked people that from tomorrow the corporation person will come and collect the garbage. Don't throw. So arrange the way that every household the garbage is collected by the corporation. And then after a week or so, he said that if you throw garbage on the street after it is collected, you will be fine.
ये भी एक हमारा राव साहब आए थे इधर, कमिश्नर साहब ने, उसने एक नया सिस्टम डेवलप किया है इधर। क्या वो सिस्टम क्या? ये सिस्टम ये है कि समझो ये है हमारा एक कार सिस्टम है। फर्स्ट एक कार सिस्टम है, एक पब्लिक जो आती है कंप्लेन करने के लिए, ये सब पहले ये कार्ड फिलअप करती है। ये 24 घंटे का कंप्लेन है, 48 घंटे का जो कंप्लेन है, इधर ये सब लिखा है इसमें।
As soon as the complaint is lodged, it should be disposed within 24 hours, failing which the concerned supervisor will be punished, not the sweeper or not the class 4 employee. After the disposal of the complaint, we were sending them the reply card. Your complaint was lodged on so and so date and was disposed of by Mr. So and so.
The government has a system of a hierarchy in which there are two components. One is the responsibility, and along with the responsibility you have also powers. In our hierarchical system, most of the power is concentrated in few hands. In Surat, what they have done is that they have decentralized the system, and a proper and adequate decentralization means that when you pass on the responsibility to the lower cadre, you also give power to him. Now once you do this, he has the power, he has the responsibility, and he is able to execute it. But if you simply transfer responsibility and keep power with you, no system can work in that. And in what Surat has been done actually is this realistic decentralization.
I would say that what has happened in Surat was initially more of a reactive steps to a crisis. Then subsequently, a proactive measures were taken, which included a decentralization of the powers, a decentralized administrative system which the Surat has probably is missing elsewhere. The decentralized administrative system is not something which had happened after the plague. It's something which had existed before the plague had happened in the city. Merely creating a decentralized administrative setup without delegating the adequate financial powers would not be sufficient to tackle the crisis, or for that matter implementing the various developmental programs, or reaching the people, or enhancing the delivery system. And interestingly, let me tell you that Surat is city where the municipal commissioner, where I am the head of the administrative wing in the corporation, the same powers have been given to all the deputy commissioners in the zones, Mutandis, particularly the financial powers. And Surat, as you all know, that Surat is a corporation known for industrial development, and highest rate of urbanization, highest rate of industrialization we have in the city in the Gujarat. And it's today the second largest city of Gujarat. But in terms of industrial development, the rate of development and the potential for development, I would rate Surat is going to be the number one. If that is the situation, and we are lucky because we are getting a lot of revenue from the octroi which we have, and the 2/3 of our revenue comes from octroi. And luckily, and given our higher level of revenue and also our of lower administrative cost, so our administrative cost is around 35% of the total revenue what we have. We do have a revenue surplus, and because of the higher revenue surplus and whatever the balance which we had in the bank, in the last couple of years, the last 2-3 years, the corporation could provide a higher level of infrastructure in terms of roads, in terms of school buildings, in terms of increased water supply coverage, in terms of the drainage, in stormwater, and we are able to make provision for the infrastructures. And the financial soundness of the corporations, if we look at it, compared to the other corporations, since we have higher level of per capita level of income is very high compared to the other corporations in Gujarat, and our financially sound, and as a result, a lot of financial institutions are willing to fund the activities or for a higher level of infrastructure development in the city.
How we build our capacity on various parts, that is the generation of the income and the expenditure on various projects. A 6-month target was given for any kind of civil or engineering project. All the engineers were instituted, you are supposed to complete your project within 6 months only. If the project is not in position to complete within 6 months, the officer is supposed to give the reasoning within 6th page why he is not unable to complete the project within 6 months. Say for instance, we want to construct a flyover worth rupees 8 crore. Then the engineer in charge, he is a senior engineer, Mr. Shah, he has to give a justification why he is unable to cope up within 6 months. Then only then project will be allowed to take more time. Then we introduced a unit rate system. Rates were prescribed for various kind of works. Say for if you want to construct a road, or if you want to construct a school building, or if you want to construct a paint toilet, then unit rates were prescribed. Then we were issuing notice for the selecting the agencies. That has shortcut our various procedural time. You might be knowing that in municipal administration as well in government administration, the procedure pipeline, it takes so long period that in taking decision it takes about sometimes 6 months or 8 months or whatever the period is. That we were able to reduce considerably because of the introduction of this unit rate system.
Well, people do call this Surat model, but what we have tried to do in Surat is nothing new. This is what has been written in the administrative manuals. In the academy where IAS officers are trained, I've studied them, and surely wherever bureaucracy is trained, the same manuals are taught throughout the country, which basically says that unless we get closer to the people, unless we understand each person's accountability in a social system, unless we understand the relevance and the duties of a bureaucracy in a society, we would not be able to function. And my colleagues in Surat and I, together we have learnt that these manuals make tremendous common sense in providing, improving our own professional integrity, B, in improving our service delivery, and C, in trying to get closer to the citizens who are ultimately the paymasters of the bureaucracy. I won't call this an innovation, but I would only say that a discovery of the old manuals which are being taught in all the training academies of the bureaucrats. The important thing in any developmental activity is to get people's participation. Any clear reading of developmental histories of the so-called developed nations, the West, clearly shows the fruits of development have come only through people's participation. In Surat itself, we have tried to institutionalize two practices. The first was bringing out Citizens' Charter, which essentially says any citizen has to be informed of what their rights are vis-a-vis their municipal administration. For instance, in Surat we had come out with a set of almost 27 services to which a citizen has a right to demand, number one, and B, also to expect those services within a fixed time frame. The second part of building in this people's participation would be to build systems, the social systems, with active NGO participation. What I have in mind is unless we have social auditing being done by a third party, it would not sustain, no activity would sustain, because service providers cannot be the judges of the quality and the timeliness of such service delivery. In Surat, we have been trying to actively associate Surat Citizens Council in doing this social auditing, third-party social auditing. Even in the demolitions, we have completed around widening of 92 kilometers of main roads, and 90% of the properties which were coming in the widening of the streets even today have court injunctions, which implies that the city administration could not have widened the streets unless the people came forward voluntarily to pull down their own structures to enable the city to have wider roads.
ये क्यों हुआ? तो मैं मानता हूं कि मीडिया की भूमिका इसमें काम कर गई। आप जानती हैं कि मैं तो पिछले 44 सालों से मीडिया से जुड़ा हुआ हूं, और मैंने सूरत की दुर्दशा के बारे में इतना लिखा है कि इसका तो एक बड़ी सी पुस्तक हो सके। और यही बात सभी पत्रकारों की थी, तो उन लोगों ने भी सूरत में सुधार की आवश्यकता के बारे में, सूरत की समस्याओं के बारे में ढेर सारी बातें वर्षों तक लिखी थी। और जब सूरत पर आपत्ति के बाद आपत्ति आई, संकट के बाद संकट आया, तब भी मीडिया का रोल लोगों को उजागर, लोगों को जागरूक करने की दिशा में केंद्रित हुआ था। और जब ये सहसा ऑपरेशन डिमोलिशन शुरू हुआ, शहर की साफ सफाई हुई, शहर के स्वास्थ्य का सुधार करने की कोशिशें शुरू हुई, तब जिस तरह लोग आश्चर्यचकित हो गए, उस तरह मीडिया वाले भी शुरू में आश्चर्यचकित हुए, लेकिन उन्होंने फौरन भांप लिया कि ये तो नगर के हित में एक बहुत अच्छी बात हो रही है। तो मीडिया ने, सारे के सारे जन माध्यमों ने इस अभियान का तहे दिल से स्वागत करना शुरू कर दिया। और जो कॉरपोरेशन कई सालों से हमारी आलोचनाओं का शिकार बनती रही थी, उस कॉरपोरेशन को पहली बार हम लोगों ने बधाइयां देनी शुरू की।
Basically, NGOs are working with the poor. So I feel first role that they can play is they are a bridge between the poor and the municipal corporation, because very often the poor do not have access to the corporation officials and all that. So these NGOs can play a mediatory role. Second is, from the corporation itself, there are a lot of the programs for the poor, for urban poor upliftment, etc., which they don't know themselves. And there are many policies with regard to water and other amenities which they don't know. So this information can be reached to the people. Thirdly, I feel that NGOs can play a very vital role in the policy making of the entire city planning. Because when you think of the city as a body, very often people think of the business sector, industrial sector, and the ones who have power in a way. So it's only the sector that is left out very often in the entire planning process is the poor, and mostly the slum dwellers and others. So what I feel is NGO as a body that is standing for the poor, for the entire population of the poor, can influence the policies.
ને જે 22 લાખ પોપ્યુલેશન છે એની અંદર લગભગ 10 લાખ લોકો હીરા ઉદ્યોગ સાથે સંકળાયેલા છે। એરિયા વાઇઝ એવું કહેવાય છે કે વર્લ્ડની અંદર સૌથી વધુમાં વધુ પોપ્યુલેશન સુરતનું છે, અને એમાં પણ જે પર્ટિક્યુલર અમારો ડાયમંડ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીઝનો એરિયા છે, જેમાં સુરતના જે 22 લાખમાં 10 લાખ લોકો એ એરિયામાં રહે છે, અને એ એરિયામાં જે રહેતા મોટા ભાગના રત્ન કલાકાર ભાઈ બહેનો છે એ લોકો સૌરાષ્ટ્રથી માઇગ્રેટ થઈને અહીંયા આગળ સુરતમાં આવેલા છે। હવે એ સંજોગોમાં એટલા સ્મોલ એરિયાની અંદર એક તો આ લોકો રહે છે ત્યાં આગળ રત્ન કલાકારો ભાઈઓ, અને એની અંદર સૌથી મોટો પ્રોબ્લેમ છે કે એ લોકોને રહેવાનો પ્રોબ્લેમ છે, અને જે કોર્પોરેશન તરફથી ઇન્ફ્રાસ્ટ્રક્ચર જે મળવું જોઈએ, પાણી છે, હવાનો જે પોલ્યુશનનો જે પ્રોબ્લેમ છે એ બહુ અગત્યની વસ્તુ છે.
So I believe that unless there is a public participation, it will not the facility which is required by the citizen of the city.
ना ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है, ब्यूरोक्रेसी इज़ नॉट नेसेसरी. पब्लिक का ज़्यादातर सपोर्ट होना चाहिए क्योंकि गंदगी हम लोग करते हैं, ब्यूरोक्रेसी नहीं करती है. उनका हटाने का काम है, लेकिन हम खुद ध्यान नहीं देंगे तो कैसे? अगर हमने पान खा लिया या पिचकारी कहीं पे थूक दिया, उसका पड़ीका कहीं पे डाल दिया, तो वो हमारा फर्ज होता है कि हम उसको उठा के सही जगह पे डालें.
The Surat experience with innovative management practices has certainly become a very important model for Indian cities. There are several very important elements of this model. The most important aspect of the Surat experience is that the Municipal Corporation of Surat has instituted a decentralized system of governance. A second important dimension of the Surat experience that other cities must take note of is a very high level of community participation in the post-plague scenario of Surat. On top of that, the city has very carefully designed the regulations and set of rules which will apply not only to city employees but also to city residents in order to make these services and service delivery systems effective. And what the Surat experience has demonstrated is that once the government puts the systems in place, makes the arrangements to deliver the services, and once the government employees are committed to the extent that the employees of the Surat Municipal Corporation were, then people are much more forthcoming in terms of their cooperation, and their involvement becomes quite automatic and does not require the strong enforcement that might be needed in the initial stages.